All right. See, I think we have discussed a bit about the selection of research topic before the coffee break. And during the break, I had a chance to talk to some of us who expressed the desire to do a research on certain topic. What we prepare to learn in about 3 days may not cover different kind of research. For example, if you want to do a purely theological research, you can take eschatology, or Pauline would like to write something about redemption. Those type would require different type of research. What I would like to share with you is purely the survey research or experimental research. Might touch some of the historical research that can be used in studying the scripture, and also the you may have heard what we call the future ethnographic future research. You want to know the future of Singapore society or the Thai society in the next 50 years, you cannot use this type of research that we are learning at the moment. We use another approach. We use another methodology called the EFR, ethnographic future research. The data collection method is so different. Data analysis is also different. It's just to alert you that there are so many different kinds of research that we can use, but mainly the one that is mostly used is the survey research, and then some experimental research. Then if you want to do these two types of research, you would need to learn some terminology, some techniques, and like sampling techniques, for instance. You cannot study a very large population, the whole country of Thailand, but you have to do some sampling, those type of things. So, but before we proceed to that part, I like to discuss with you a little bit about the role of AI in doing research. You see, in every kind of academic work, plagiarism is considered a serious, offense, a serious sin. If you do that, it would be very difficult to be forgiven, which means you just steal someone else's work and put it in your name without giving any credit, any citation. You make everyone think that this is your own work. This is called plagiarism. So in academic world, it is very serious. It is very dishonest. It is very I don't know what to say, but if you already been given a degree, they can withdraw your degree if they found out perhaps 10, 15 years after that. It happened to so many people. Not so many, but it happened to many people who did that. In my time of advising a thesis, I have come across one who just copied from another piece of work and put it in his name. When we read the whole thing, oh, this is an excellent job. It's the best. It's one of the best. And nobody knows. We just grant him a degree. And then we found out later that he copied it from one of the law schools in Bangkok. And then that student graduated 4 years ago. So we confront him, and sometimes we just say, well, what should we do in this case? And then we just ask the student to resign from the program. There's no record being made. of this instance. So let's get back. What about AI? Can you use AI to do research for you? You just ask ChatGPT to come up with the research topic and ask him to, suggest the outlines and then complete it for you. And then you just sign your name and send it to the school. And the examining committee would read, oh, such a wonderful, but it's not your work.
You can't defend it with data.
This is not only for the thesis writing. It can happen to any subject that you teach, particularly online subject. So you see, problem with AI is that sometimes it generates an inaccurate answer for you, and you are not competent enough to know that this is incorrect. So you just accept it as suggested by the great friend of yours called AI. There's so many different AI platform right now that you can use besides the ChatGPT. I tried it once for the history of Thailand, and ChatGPT suggested all the wrong chronology or the wrong answer because they have a limited source or data. Yes, but what you can use is that you can use AI to help you. For example, if you want to study on this topic and you want to do the literature review, you want to find out how many people have done the same line of work before, and then that would be a great help if you can use the AI to help you. They can even summarize it for you, provided that you understand the original source of that piece of work. When you do the literature review, you are supposed to read those literature that are related to your work. If you didn't read at all, the AI did it for you, and they did a wonderful, summary of those texts. What would the school think about this? So many universities and colleges in the world right now are so worried about this situation. Some in Europe even try to prohibit students from using the AI, the ChatGPT, because they're very clever. They ask ChatGPT to take the bar exam in law school. They did better than the average score of the students in the class. So I don't know, what do you think? Any ideas? You cannot fight it. You cannot avoid it in the future. You have to live with it wisely, of course. But in our case, we have 10 courses, except a very original course like the modalities. You ask AI to come up with the summary of modalities. They won't be able to do it. I tried that already because modalities concept is new.
It's inaccurate as well.
It's inaccurate as well.
Asked to summarize a sentence, but he expanded, and then I look at every
See?
7 modalities, they are inaccurate.
Yeah. You see?
Mix and match.
Yeah. You are in a position to judge that it is inaccurate because you know the subject.
Yeah.
You know the subject. I know the subject, so I know that this is wrong. This is not right. But in the case of the general students, they don't know which one is right, which one is correct, and that could be a real problem in our program.
What AI helps is ability to rephrase something that you're trying to express, but you don't have the words to it. So when they rephrase, you can say, "Oh, this is a better way of doing."
Mm.
Yeah. So I think it helps in that sense.
Okay, okay, that's one way of living with AI. Use AI as a helper. Don't use AI to study it for you. Otherwise, you can earn a degree without knowing anything.
The
You
degree
see.
will be awarded to AI.
Yeah, and when you steal someone's work, it is bad enough. But now it is not. It is not about stealing. It is like you asking someone to do the job for you, like you asking
Outsource.
someone. You outsource to AI. That's the point. Yeah, that's the point. So
What's
what
the trend today? Outsourcing.
what do you say, Nacelle? Yes.
Trend today, outsourcing.
Outsourcing is a trend. Yes, it's a trend. So this is what I would like to brainstorm and ask for all of your opinion. What would we do with the AI invasion into our academic world?
Just an aid.
That's
Just an aid. A tool. An aid.
A
But
language
you go
tool.
to-
Very much
okay,
a language
okay, okay. And now they have a program called AI detectable. Because if you use AI, the professor would know right away, and they would detect that this is not you, this is not human, this is from AI. So they develop a program called AI detectable or something. You ask that to summarize it for you, and then AI cannot detect. And sometimes when you did such a good quality work, the professor may be suspicious in the first place that it may not be your own work. It happened with my grandson Paul. He has a friend who submitted a composition or a journal writing to the teacher, and the teacher said, no, it's not you using AI, don't fool me. But that friend said, no, I wrote it myself. It can happen. There's sometimes students study abroad and then he answer in such a fanciful word in English and beautifully written, and then the professor said, no, it's not you. They don't have AI at that time. What they did was they asked the student to come and sit in a room and retake the exam again, and then people were watching, and he did exactly the same. There's some people who can do such a wonderful job like that, but my concern right now is about this problem, because I have been fooled before. You see, when we were in university after my retirement, and we asked, before the student enter into the doctoral program, they have to take few tests. One of them is the language ability, and then we just honor system. We just leave the room, and the student would use a handful, we come up with all of the dictionary and many translation. Google Translate can help you translate very beautifully. So that happened. Admission part, but study part can even be worse with the help of AI, and with the students being all over the world and doing online course. So I want to hear your opinion about this problem at the moment. Have you ever thought of that?
Dr. Prisha,
I think this problem must be tackled together with another problem, and that is the fact that we have online training in the first place. And the days are coming to an end where people would be willing to pay tuition fee to actually attend a face-to-face classroom if they were to be given an option to study remotely. So the fact that they can study remotely opens up the issue of integrity. There wouldn't be this issue also in terms of integrity, or rather there would be this issue of AI. Unless there is the opportunity to study remotely. As you said, if you take an exam in front of the teacher, where there's invigilation, then that's one that cuts down on the possibility of cheating. But when you have a student who's thousands of miles away in Africa or in the other ends of the earth, that necessarily means that new policies have to be in place, or a new understanding of AI. Because if you can have if you can have AI detection software, you can also develop anti AI software, for sure. Anything's possible now. So the question then comes to is, what is education? Because you began your lecture this morning by looking at two positions of logic, a priori logic and a posteriori logic. And you talked about inductive style, a priori logic, and deductive, where you have a major premise and it leads to a deduction of truth. And that deduction then becomes, you can work backwards from that deduction to go back to your thesis or your premise. So when we're talking at graduate level, then the ability to work from a proposition, right? So the issue of a hypothesis or a propositional hypothesis, are we discovering? It's the same question of what is math? Is math something that already exists, or is it something that we discover? And
we can only discover that which is already
existing. Correct. So is the process of higher education to discover something that already exists? So if that is the case, then can an argument be made that AI could be incorporated with certain guidelines, just like a calculator for a mathematician? In those days, I'm sure 50 years ago, 100 years ago, when they developed a calculator or an abacus, even before that, should we outlaw an abacus or should we outlaw a calculator?
No.
It would be almost ridiculous to say, oh, let's outlaw calculators, because unless you're taking an arithmetic course, then that's a different story. But if you're taking a typical mathematics, a calculator is almost like a standard fare, right? So would we come to a place, coming back to my question is, will we come to a place where AI is standard fare? You're supposed to pay a service provider $450 per year for the service. It's a requirement of your course to be AI enabled. Otherwise, you cannot take this course.
Oh, You see, it's a good question, but you see, you have to separate between learning and education. You see, some people can get education without learning anything. That is what I worried about. You see, particularly with the help of AI, they can get a degree without learning anything. And people are tempted to do things like this because it's easier, a lot easier for them to pass all the requirements. When we do it remotely, when we do it online, like 1,000 miles away from the school, we cannot deny AI, but I think the teacher or the professor can ask certain type of question that would allow, critical thinking to play the major part in the answer. That way, AI will not be of much help because they are very good in detail. But when it comes to critical thinking, and then AI has limitation. Imagination has limitation. And if you ask AI to compose a new song, they can compose it for you, but it won't be a great song. It may be good enough, but in the education system, we found out that sometimes we teach students something that are not applicable in life. It's a useless learning for them. But sometimes people just want to get a degree, and even though they pay, high tuition fees to get a degree, they don't care much about learning. They say that they can learn later on after finishing the degree. That happens many times. So this is. I just want to raise the concern. It's not a major problem at the moment, but we should have concern over this issue because we want King's College to be a standard, higher education institute. If we don't maintain this level, and in the future people would say that, well, it's just a waste of time and things like that. The degree that I earn doesn't mean anything. We want King's College to be a prestigious institution that people can look up to. Even though we may produce small number of graduates, doesn't matter. But keep the standard high enough that we can be proud of. Don't let anyone, even AI, to destroy these ideas of the King's College.
Maybe from the very start. Maybe from the very start, we need to create this culture of integrity in our virtual classroom. In our classroom, at the first start, we make it a culture of integrity, so that there's any form of dishonesty, it will be. If you have to develop that culture by heart, we learn it already from the start.
On the issue of integrity, I think that's a real issue of cheating and fraud, because other universities, and we've heard of horror stories, I won't mention countries, but where you can actually buy a person to take the exam for you, queue up, impersonate and take an exam. And then there are other countries who specialize, and I won't mention names, who specialize in degree mills, fake degrees. So integrity on both sides of the coin, the administration as well as the students. But I don't think that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the use, not the abuse of AI. There are many abuses in all kinds of abuses, but I think now we're talking about how can we maximize or optimize the tools that we're given. For example, in Israel, you can do surgery with your hand, or you can do robotic surgery. And now you can even turn the image 3D, look at the heart from here, from there, look at the brain from this angle, that angle, really helps the surgeon. Or you can not adopt this and don't use the gift of technology. So how do we use AI? And I think perhaps develop the university itself has to change, just like the Voice of Peace, the Voice of Peace founder. Just now we heard him speaking in Thai.
Oh, okay.
Interesting
Okay,
guy.
yeah.
He's a Westerner, but he speaks Thai perfectly.
Danish.
Danish guy, right? And he said, what's their mission? It's not about better mics and better facility. It's actually teaching every Thai Jesus, right? Bringing Jesus to every Thai. So we have to clarify what the vision is of education in the first place, of King's College education in the first place, so that we don't get in a situation where many universities today are actually running from the technology instead of running to the technology. I think Dr. Prisha is an advanced thinker, so he's actually looking at ways how can we use technology to leverage on this tool as a tool. And if that be the case, then the question is, for the professors, everyone has to change. We all have to devise a method that we are basically saying, go ahead and use AI. You use every tool if you can afford it, because not everybody can afford AI, right? Except for one or two questions, right? So go ahead and pay for AI. Get the best, absolutely. Have whatever image help you can have. But frame the question differently, so that there's no way AI can, unless there's a human intelligence there, a higher intelligence, there's no way that AI can answer in that way. I think the technical term in ChatGPT that they use is the prompt, PROMPT. If we can prompt the student to give us something that the computer cannot give us, then we are going to be really giving value for money. Because they will be paying for their education with us. So what value can we give if they're just putting in a prompt to an AI and then the AI is giving the answer? There's no value in that. So as a professor, we have to be, I think the whole industry, the whole education is now thinking very hard as to how to recalibrate ourselves post-COVID and post-ChatGPT. This is, in fact, perhaps the question of the century. So, a lot of answers, a lot of questions, but will produce some inquiry, will produce some sort of answer as to the quality of the education, and then how do you deliver it in a way where the answer is not so easily, you could prompt an answer from a machine and give you a standard answer. We want them to use tools, but how do we ourselves change? Instead of looking at the students, the student is going to be cheating. No, what about us as a professor? How can we come up with a course that is going to give value beyond just whatever that the AI can give you? And that comes in the stories, in the anecdotes, and so much more.
I have seen one of the questions that Professor gave to the student that AI cannot tackle very easily. Something like after you study this course, say economic development, after you have studied this course, can you come up with a new theory of economic development? AI would be now. And if you can come up with this new theory, you can be awarded Nobel Prize. A question like this that would help students to think and no way that a simple AI collection tools can produce a satisfactory answer to anyone. For example, if you're an engineer and you see Bangkok, there's a lot of flooding every year, in traffic jams. AI cannot give the answer to those problems in a meaningful way, of course, in a meaningful way. So this is the thing that we should alert ourselves. It will come. I'm sure it will come.
I think the example in the recent Hollywood uproar by writers who felt that their jobs were threatened by ChatGPT is actually quite infantile to me and immature, because a real writer would have a style that is unmistakable and all of your own.
Yeah.
But those half-rate, half-baked writers,
Would
of
be
course,
very
they would
mechanical.
they would be in trouble. Sure. So the first thing I did, Dr. Prisha, when you gave us the outline, I ran through paragraph by paragraph all your topics on AI. That's the very first thing I did. And I hit the word simplify language so that I can understand, and it could simplify the whole course for you.
Yes.
But that is just a very rudimentary approach. Then I want to listen to your life experience, and so all of the stories and your experience, that cannot be replicated by any machine.
Yes.
So I want to get past the outline stage. I want to get past the basic sort of fishbone or backbone, spine, the outline of your. I want to get through that. Now I want to get to the meat. That I don't think the ChatGPT can do. But on the flip side of that, may I say that why I feel that a research facility like King's College, a teaching or research institution, might want to invest in using AI is because, let's say, original ideas can actually be going into the learning cycle, so that future generations, it's just like Wikipedia, right? If you don't go on there with the truth, then somebody else is going to go on there with the lies. So we might as well dominate in that field too. And I think the Christian University would be very wrong for them to go backwards and backpedal on this issue of AI. I think we need to be smarter than just it's we're scared. No, that's really, we need to move very advanced, strategically reposition our education goals, not just to regurgitate a set curriculum that was written 50 years ago. No, we ourselves have to put in the work now if we want students to have both the use of technology as well as creative thinking.
Actually, Pastor, in our days, during the last days, the Lord is pouring out wisdom more than ever before. In dreams, in everything, I really don't know, but it just pop up. You see it very clear in the dreams, and you come up with something different that the world cannot give. Solomon, he has the wisdom, and he says in Ecclesiastes 2, verse 11, I denied myself, nothing my eyes desired, denied to self. I refused my heart no pleasure, But yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless. Chasing after the wind, nothing was gained under the sun.
Okay.
So we will put that in our heart. What we labor for this world is nothing and meaningless. But when we give all things, give back to the glory of God. That whatever we do, it is for the glory of God and not for ourselves.
Okay.
Then everything, we solve this kind of dishonesty, and we focus on the value that God has given us.
Yeah, and so he warned us that beware of the writing of books that has no end, you see. And then I think probably it's about time to go down for lunch, and then because the technician might want to take a break for lunch also. You want to say something?
Can I just say, because
Yes.
because it's exactly what I was feeling, not feeling, but it is this idea about having like Pastor G, Pastor Lian, we all have the download and right, what do you call it, not necessarily right, but the best approach to this particular idea of learning. And so it may become prescriptive that we specify things that students can do with much wisdom. Give them the proper guidelines. That's what we are saying.
Yeah.
Rather than just say, let them come up, they can come up with their own ideas. But it is good for us to give the best guidelines, the best prescription, and so to have meaningful outcomes, fruitful endeavors. Because I was telling Colin just now, it's not about just knowledge or separated from experience, but the combination of knowledge that comes from God and from ourselves, plus their own experience, just like the way you were teaching. You know, if you didn't bring in your own experience, we cannot understand as well as we would want to. So it enhances. And so this is what we need to impart to students. So she was saying, starting with culture of integrity. But this is something that already can only be in place if we, on our part, we do set the example. We all know that. And it's not just telling them about it, but set the example and give them that proper guideline. It's like saying what God is telling us to do and we should be doing it. It's back to the Word of God. And so we bring that out rather than just be too random in allowing freedom of choice or whatever. So that they don't go wrong. I don't know, because there's too much in the world that is not quite right. So they are so influenced by everything around them and they can just get it all wrong. So to really narrow down the course of whatever they need to do. And so what you said about the guidance by a thesis professor or somebody is so important.
Yes.
But do we have that personnel that, God will be God.
Okay. Who else? Yes, Lian, please.
I think it's like someone invented a car. I'm just using the car to get from place A to B. It's efficient for me, but I don't say that I designed the car. Because I think, so as long as I don't say I designed this car to get me from this place to that, I just use the car. I think it's okay because it helps me. Because if you look at it, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything's already there. God has already created, and it's up to us to adapt and use it.
Exactly.
Why would I dig a well myself when there's machines to help me do it quicker and faster, right? But why would I design a whole irrigation when Israel has the best irrigation? You can just deploy it. So I think, but what they can't do is they contextualize to the ground environment of like a certain location, certain communities, and that intelligence comes from the person who implemented. So I think it is okay to use AI because it helps. But then you have to verify because not everything they say is correct because they're.
I have nothing against AI. It's just only a concern of integrity on the part of the student, and probably on the part of the professor too. It's both sides.
I think we can safely assume going forward that regardless of whatever software that we use for anti this and anti that, we can safely assume in the future every student will be using AI.
Exactly.
We start with that premise. That is our hypothesis. Don't try to outlaw this thing.
Yes.
That is the
Right.
hypothesis. And don't call it cheating. Don't call it fraud, or don't call it plagiarism. Rather, start with that basis that every student will be using, if it's available,
Yes.
and if it's not illegal in the country, like no government is going to outlaw it, all right?
The work of the
Yes,
person.
so it's like an encyclopedia, right? Here's, some people can afford an Encyclopedia Britannica and pay thousands of dollars for it. Now everything is online already,
Yes.
right? So we start with that major premise
Okay.
that AI
Is
will
open source.
will be a source of reference, especially for online students,
Yes.
because we may not have access to a library.
Ah.
That's Pastor
Right.
Daniel Ford.
So even the accrediting agencies who require 150,000 volumes in an institution before they will accredit you, hello, that is all going up. That has to change. Even policies have to be rewritten. Now that so if you start with a major premise, then now I think what Dr. Prisha is saying is, what's the deduction? What can we deduce for students of King's College in the future? What's the deduction point here? The premise is they are already using it and will continue to use it, and it will get faster, smarter, and, more ubiquitous as the years.
Yeah, let's continue this discussion over lunch. But I'd like to pose a question to everyone. Suppose you're asking a student a question and you ask him or her to write an answer, and he or she didn't want to do that, just put on ChatGPT and ChatGPT produce an answer. Your question can be answered instantly in perhaps 5 seconds, and then they submit that to you, and then you grade. No, this shouldn't be the case, because otherwise all of your students would turn to be AI. You have AI students, not the real student who are working in different fields in Southeast Asia or in Asia or whatsoever. We don't want that to happen. It is just a little concern, not a major problem right now.
I think it's perhaps the problem of the century for educationists. I would respond to that. I would respond that the question is now have to change. We can no longer use the questions we were asking before.
Exactly.
We have to now be smarter than the student, and we have to come out with questions that, yes, go ahead, use your AI,
Yeah.
but I want to see your creativity that no machine can produce.
That would be a very classic kind of classroom learning, but with an online. Mostly the question would be given in multiple choice, and then that analytical part is lost in the multiple choice, and it's not like in old school that professor used chalk and board, and in my time of study, professor who used PowerPoint is looked down upon. It is those who just write on the board. Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
But anyway, that is the way that to stimulate the student to think. Multiple choice, I don't have anything against multiple choice. It has its place, but in some like thesis writing cannot be done in a multiple choice fashion, right? You have to write. You have to have ideas behind your thesis.
And perhaps we have a course called CBAT. It's called Challenge-Based Agile Management. So the documentation of a project, such as going into a village and digging a well, that process is being documented. How do you engage the local population, the elders, the people, beneficiaries, and so on? That you cannot
use AI.
use AI. Well, go ahead and use AI. But
I think
you
we have
don't-
to we have to move downstairs because they are about to close this studio
Okay.
by 12 o'clock. Okay. Shall we have a word of prayer? Pastor Gerard, please.
Okay. Well, Lord, we thank you for the greatest intelligence ever, the highest of all intelligence that you are, and we are made in your image and in the image of that intelligence, Lord. And help us, Lord, I pray, to break out of our conventions and our stereotypical thinking about education. If there's an answer, would you please reveal it to us? And this is we will make space. We will make room for you to speak. We will give space and we'll give priority to the answers that you give us concerning this sensitive topic of students' responses with using machine language learning. And we will be quick to give you all the praise, all the thanks, all the glory for your answer to us, Lord. We thank you, we bless you in Jesus' name.
Amen.